few things I want to talk about in this episode, but I want to start the episode off with a question. If the Idaho 4 murders had taken place in a house of worship or a building associated with a certain organization or faith or race, or it had taken place at an event associated with a certain organization, place, or race, how likely do you think you would be, or people would be, to assume that the motive in this crime has to do with the organization, race, or faith? I'm curious as to why so many people are having a hard time believing that the motive in a case where the majority of victims were women, and it took place in a house where all women lived, in an area on Greek Row, which could imply that the house was associated with Greek life or sororities. Why are so many people having trouble believing or considering that this crime could have been motivated by the sex of the victims? I just want certain people to consider a possible bias that they have about women. Because I'm seeing a lot of people dismiss the incel theory as though it's silly, right? Like, oh, no, that's not what this is. That's not what he is. He's not an incel. Incels are the leading terrorist group in America. And yet people are like, nah, that's not what this is. Even though the guy has a history of being creepy towards women, people are still, it's not that. Why are people so hesitant to consider that these murders were motivated by the fact that these victims, 3 of them, were women? Now I want to go over something that I saw on a recent Thought Riot Podcast live. I will link to the live in the episode description. If you're not following them, please go follow them. They are fantastic and thorough and smart and funny, and they have a good rapport, and go follow them. So they were going through the warrants, specifically the one I believe about for Kohberger's house and office. And they make some interesting statements here that I'm going to read. These murders appear to have been planned rather than a crime that happened in a moment of conflict. I believe it likely that Kohberger planned his actions ahead of time. The plans may have included a review of other murders or violent assaults/stabbing and or cutting of people, as well as how to avoid detection after the commission of such crimes. Now, what's interesting to me about that, or at least here's what I'm inferring from this statement. What I'm inferring is the victims, the bodies, the scene, gave the appearance or gave the impression to investigators that whoever did this knew what they were doing. That this was somebody who either had a lot of experience with doing something like this or who really did their research. And I think one of the points that they used to make this determination or theory is that the victims were attacked in such a way that they were incapacitated very quickly, and possibly in a way that would avoid him, the suspect, being covered in too much blood. I also think it's interesting that they say that they believed he did research on how to avoid detection. Now, I don't know if that means how to avoid detection after he committed each crime or after he committed the entire crime and left the scene. I think it's the latter, but it could be both. Either way, what that tells me is, again, this crime scene was far more organized than we've been led to believe. You know, we've heard so many different words, so many different descriptions, but this is a warrant. And what it says to me is that they believe they're looking for somebody who really knew what they were doing. Somebody maybe who worked in a job where they did this often, like say some kind of mercenary or hit person, because I believe men and women could be hit people, or was somebody that maybe had an education or a background in these types of crimes. Now, the too long didn't read version of what I just said is, I don't think there was a lot of evidence at the crime scene. Nor do I think that there was a lot of blood or blood spilled in a way that would have made investigators think that this was heat of the moment. This was done by somebody in the heat of passion. Here's another interesting line. How to avoid detection after the commission of such crimes, details of the 1122 King Road residence, its location, neighborhood, and or information about one or more of the victims. So they're saying that included with this research, they feel that the suspect researched the location, the neighborhood, and potentially the people inside of it. And remember, researching surveillance is not considered stalking according to Idaho law. According to Idaho law, the victim, the person being stalked, has to be aware of it, meaning like it's somebody who's being directly threatened. Here's something else that may or may not be a bombshell, but it's something that I've discussed previously. To date, we have not recovered the weapon used in the homicides, which would indicate that he took it with him from the scene. Based on my training, the weapon will likely contain trace evidence on it from the crime scene. One likely location for the weapon or any sheath for the weapon would be his residence. Now, the hosts of the true crime of the Thought Riot podcast, they were really kind of intrigued by this. They were confused and a little startled because, as far as we know, they have the sheath. Now, I've said before that I think that it's very possible a sheath to a completely different knife than the one used was left behind to as sort of a diversion, as a way to misdirect the investigation. And it makes me wonder if they think that as well. Now Thought Riot, they were interpreting this as possibly there was multiple weapons. I don't happen to see that possible, just because I don't know how he would manage two different weapons. So I'm going to stand firm on my original suspicion that they believe that the sheath they found is not necessarily the sheath to the knife that was used. Now here's something else. The King Road residence contained a significant amount of blood from the victims, including spatter and cast-off, which, based on my training, makes it likely that this evidence was transferred to Kohberger's person, clothing, or shoes. Based on the locations of the suspect vehicle and the 845 phone immediately following the murders, it is probable that Kohberger went to his residence at, and then they say his address. At that time, it is likely that he still had blood or other trace evidence on his person clothes, including skin cells or hair from the victims or from Kaylee's dog. What's very clear is that police don't believe this was random. They don't believe that this was done at the heat of passion. They believe that this was done by somebody who took the time and the steps to plan something in a way that would help them avoid detection. Which I think, in my opinion, I think that means the frat boys, probably not. Especially, everyone's saying roid rage because that was in the 4chan post. Roid rage is typically like Andrew Cunanan. They said that his first kill of, Jeff Trail, they believe that was done in roid rage and that everything else was just him just trying to avoid detection. That's usually heat of the moment. not typically something done because of, there's usually not a lot of planning involved there. So I think that means no to the frat guys, because I don't know how these young kids would be able to get away with not being detected. So those are my thoughts. I want to hear yours. I want to hear anything else that may have been in those warrants or PCAs that maybe I've overlooked. Share it in the comments.